Hey everybody, welcome to Shooting the with Yankee. As always, I am Yankee, so let's start shooting. Tonight's topic is one that divides a lot of people in the gun community. It's about the national gun organizations like the GOA, the NRA. Do we need them? Are they an outdated concept? Are they a benefit to the gun community? Are they a detriment to the gun community? Are they actually one of the bigger parts of the problem? And I think you can tell by the way I phrased that question there that I believe the latter. I think they are part of the problem. Big gun organizations stop the money from going where it needs to go when we have fights to fight. The NRA, they'll raise money. Like say we got something going on in Oregon. They'll come in, spend $80 to file a brief or something, because that's what the court fees are basically. And then they will fundraise on the topic, bring in tens of thousands of dollars, if not more, and then give a pittance to the state if they give them anything. They are like car dealers. You know, if you could buy a car straight from GM, kind of like how you can with Tesla, the car would be cheaper. That's why Teslas are as cheap as they are, because you buy them straight from Tesla. But you got to have that middleman there, that dealer thing that, you know, we get the cars and then we sell them to you, but we got to make enough money off each car that we can keep this big building going and pay all these employees, etc. So you're paying a lot more. And that's what the gun organizations do, except to a far greater extent. Instead of raising the price 20% like a dealer does, they raise the price like 95% and only give like 5% of the money to where it should be going. So I think they are a negative. And here's the thing, back in the day when if you lived in Ohio, you didn't know what was happening in California, they served a little bit different purpose because they kept you informed. They had newsletters, they had, you know, magazines, etc. And you knew what was going on in the world and you could at least try to fight it, or at least help try to fight it, or be aware of it. Nowadays, we have the internet. If you live in bumfuck Arkansas, you know what's going on in, you know, douchebag California. You know exactly what's going on. You hear about it 1,000 times. So you know where the fights are. You can go put your money directly into that fight. If you see a lawsuit going on and they got a GoFundMe or something, you can go straight there, fund that lawsuit that you think is going to do good or stop a law in its tracks, an anti-gun law. You don't need these organizations getting in the middle, taking most of the money. And also, if that was the worst thing they did, that'd be one thing. That'd be bad enough. But also, they have to maintain the fight, meaning they don't want a victory. They don't want, like right now, the NRA would shit their pants if Donald Trump put out an executive order that said the ATF is defunct, the NFA is defunct. I've put these bills forward to Congress. We're going to pass them, and all this stuff's going to be done. The 2A is not going to be infringed on. GOA, NRA, they shit their pants because they'd be like, we've got millions of dollars worth of stuff going on that we got to keep funding, like our big paychecks and our, you know, our yacht rentals and all this other stuff. How are we going to keep doing that? How am I going to make the payment on my New York penthouse? How am I going to afford to pay off my investment properties I bought? They would panic if that happened. That's why they work behind the scenes to make sure that doesn't happen. They want to take little fake victories and hand them out one at a time that really don't do anything, or maybe get countered immediately after, because that gets to say like, oh, look, we tried, but we got outsmarted again. So we got to try again. So give us more money. That's their whole game. If you're a band of defenders, like in the Middle Ages, you know, you have a band of men and you go around and you say, hey, for this much money, we'll stand guard on your city walls and we'll make sure that the Visigoths or the Vandals don't get you. Well, do you hope that, well, 2 years go by and they know we're here, so there's not a single attack? No, because then the king will be like, well, we don't need you anymore. The people will be like, we don't need you anymore. Obviously, we're not at risk. So you want to stage some attacks. That was common. You'd send half your men out into the dark, lob some arrows at the city, and then you go fight them off. You put on some theater for them so that they keep you employed. And that's what the NRA has done for years. That's what the GOA does. So don't fall for it. If you fell for it with the NRA, I can forgive you. It took a long time to convince people. I was one of the first ones on the internet trying to convince people what the NRA was really doing. It finally, people figured out what was going on. But if you're falling for the same thing with other groups, well, that's on you. You just might be stupid. So don't be stupid. Wake up. And with that being said, I want to go over here and see what other people are saying. Ghost Shadow said, I'll have my new gun before you get... Oh, he's being a jerk. That's all he's doing is being a jerk. Jerk. John Heasley, speaking of jerks, said, they are worthless and harm us more than help. I agree 100%. Like I said, they have to lob those attacks at us every now and then, pretending, they're not them. It's not them. It's the bad guys. We would have stopped it if we could. No, you need it to happen to keep yourself employed. Mr. Furley said, New York Attorney General proved just how useless the NRA is. Yeah, well, they proved how corrupt the NRA was. That's for certain. The NRA is definitely a corrupt organization that cared more about money and nothing else. And that became very clear if you paid any attention to the court cases whatsoever. When you saw some of the things the NRA did, it's like, oh, that's shameful. It's just, they should have been hung up on pikes. They shouldn't have been allowed to keep their stuff. Like, Wayne LaPierre stepped down and maintained backdoor control. But, instead, his head should have been on pike, as far as I'm concerned. Not be able to keep all his millions of dollars and his fancy suits that we paid for, and his cars that we paid for, and his homes that we paid for. Heavy J says, if this was 1990, maybe they were useful. Exactly. Back in the day, we didn't have this network we have in front of us called the internet, where we could all be interconnected, where we can all stand up and say, hey, here's where the fight is. If you remember, not too long ago, I stood up about a fight here in the state of Washington with the Second Amendment Foundation running the charge. They're a local organization for me. And I said, hey, I'm donating $500 out of my pocket. If any of these other groups and organizations and gun channels care about the actual fight, they'll do the same. And I got a lot of people raised a bunch of money. We raised a lot of money, but also made a lot of enemies because I called them out and made them actually back up their shit when they really don't mean most of it. So now we don't need these groups. They don't do anything. They don't do anything we can't do for ourselves 10 times better and for half the money. Jacoby said organizations aren't as much of a proponent towards the Second Amendment as they were, but their presence would still spark interest to indecisive people. Really, I don't think so. I disagree. That's an interesting point, but I think it's the other way around. I don't think the NRA ever wins over anybody indecisive. I think the NRA shoves people away, because you could be having a relatively sane conversation with someone about guns who's on the fence, and as soon as you say the NRA, they go, fuck the NRA. If that's what they feel, I feel the opposite. I think they're more divisive than anything else, because as soon as that person thinks of NRA, they don't just think of, well, are guns good or bad, or is the argument something to be listened to? They hear right wing, right wing, right wing, right wing. That's all they hear, because the NRA made sure that that's what they're tied to. So I kind of think they're more divisive than they are inclusive, to be honest. Johnny Mandrick chimed in here and says, it's them laughing at us that bothers me the most. Well, yeah, they do that quite a bit. It's not just them at the higher levels. It's the people who work for them at the lower levels. I mean, a lot of these gun channels, their whole goal was to get jobs with like the Second Amendment Foundation, the GOA, the NRA. Like, remember Tim from Military Arms Channel? His biggest goal was to be running the GOA someday. They wanted to work for the GOA. He tried to start his own organization. And when I called him out on that bullshit, remember they sent me that cease and desist order because I was telling the truth about him, which I read it on air because I thought it was funny. That they sent me a cease and desist because I asked a question. They said, all of our money just goes to expenses for the group. We don't pay salaries. I'm like, oh, but do you all take expenses from the group? Does the group ever put checks in your account? Cease and desist talking about our organization, because that's what they were doing. They were just disguising it as expenses instead of salaries. So if they gave each other a third of the money, it was expenses. It pays for our time. That's different than a salary. No, it's not. So yeah, they laugh at you on multiple different levels. If most of the people who watch the big gun channels knew what the people that run those big gun channels think about them, they'd never watch another video by them. If most of the people who watch Hickok 45 knew what Hickok 45 thinks of the average gun owner, not only would they not watch his videos, they'd be trying to find where he lives. So yeah, people are stupid and they fall for this shit, and they do laugh at you. It's not like my channel where everybody laughs at me. They laugh at you. So John Mandrick's got a point right there. But that looks like that's it for people weighing in right now. I'm glad some people got involved there. Remember, I want to hear what you think. I want these videos to be about your opinions, not mine. Like Dale Rickety, who just weighed in here and says, Washington gun rights are another group who promote doom and gloom and all of that BS. Yeah, that's how they make their money. Like OFF and all these other organizations. I've tried to support them, tried to work with them, but they don't want to make real progress. They don't want to admit how we're winning and things are good and they're getting better even. They don't want to admit that because that's bad for business. And it also is bad for morale. But bad morale is good for their coffers. So I don't like that at all. But like I was saying, I want to hear what you all have to think. I don't want these videos to just be about my opinion. I want to be more about your opinion. So if you want to weigh on one of these topics, you want to weigh in on one of these topics, come to one of the live chats. We have them every night at 6 p.m. Pacific time, except for Wednesdays when they're at 7. Come in, let me know what you think, especially if you disagree with me. Like tonight, Jacoby and I had a little, we disagreed on a little something. I always think that makes for better conversation. So come on in, let me know what you think. I hope to see you at the next live chat. With that being said, like I said, I hope to see you next time. Until then, remember, always carry and stay safe until I see you again.